Hi, I am Vicki Wright Hamilton, and welcome to Ignite. Are you ready to spark your passion and fuel your leadership journey? Then this is where ambition meets action and transformation begins. Let's light the fire and keep it burning. I will tell you, I am so excited to have my guest today, Kendra McDowell. We're going to be talking about some things that are happening right now, all around this tax season. Hi, Kendra.
Hi. Thank you for
Welcome.
having me. Yes, yes.
Well, why don't you take a minute and just tell the audience about your company and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Kendra McDowell. I coined myself as a born accountant. I own Premier Accounting Associates, which is a bookkeeping and tax firm. I have a home care agency and I do podcasts and I'm working on my first documentary series. So, yeah, boring stuff. But my
No exciting stuff. I can relate to the documentary. I got one releasing on March 20th, The Diary of Successful Black Women here in Atlanta. And so we'll be at the theater and doing our premiere. And so I can relate to all of that. I also sell products. So, girlfriend, you are in good company in terms of moving forward. But
I
as we talk about that, we are in tax season. And
mhm.
it's a very, very stressful time, as we begin to look at taxes. I'd like to ask you, what are the steps that business owners can take throughout the year to prepare for their tax season so it's not so stressful?
Right. So I always tell my clients that you need to keep up with your receipts. You need to make sure that you are bookkeeping. That's like the scariest word that a lot of clients don't do. And so what they do is every month they put everything in a shoebox. And yeah, there are still some clients that, and we're not talking about small companies, but they're just, I don't know if they do that just to be quirky. But my advice to business owners is that, you have to get a handle and know where you are. And so in order to do that, it's best practice to make sure that you're tracking your income, you're tracking your expenses daily so you can have a handle on your cash flow and making sure that if you don't have an accountant or bookkeeper, that you are reconciling that to your bank statement. A lot of businesses like to look at their cash balance to say, oh, this is where I am. But your bank balance is not where your cash position is. So I can't speak that enough to say keeping track of your income and expenses. And that also lets you know what you have left to pay and then what you're owed. So it's a great practice.
I really appreciate that advice, even as a single business owner, taking files to categorize during the year. Okay, this is a receipt I need to keep for this. This is a receipt I need to keep for this. Or here's my monthly statement, or this is where I am, or was my financial review with doing my with my QuickBooks and making sure, it's all those little things, but it's the things we don't like to do, but we have to do, right? And I think that's one of the benefits of your company is that if you don't want to do it, you don't have to worry about it. Hire me, I can get it done.
The tax hero.
I see you. I see you. I see you. So let me ask you, how can someone maximize the deductions without the fear of making a mistake? That I'm doing the wrong thing or I didn't do it correctly, etc.
Right. So, in order to maximize your deduction, you want to make sure that you have evidence, evidence, evidence. I can't say that enough. So, you have to make sure that it's an expense that is insured, an expense that should be written off. And then you have to have the receipt and then you have to have the reason. A lot of individuals were like, oh, I had, my house redone and, I have a home based business. Can I use that as an expense? So I think it's also being knowledgeable of what are eligible expenses so that you are maximizing the correct expenses. Because just because whether you have a business or a home based business, not everything can get thrown in there as an expense. And I think that's where I see sometimes the knowledge basis is just you can maximize, but you have to document. You have to make sure that it's in the correct category and that it is ensure a deduction that is yours to take. And if that is true and you have the expenses to back it out, maximize it.
So I want to take that a little further.
Okay.
First of all, where can a business owner go to get of what's available to be, for expenses. And does that matter based upon the kind of company you are, whether you're a LLC, a nonprofit, etc.? Where do we go to get that so that we know?
Right. So I would suggest the best place to go is going to be to the irs.gov because you can print this form. So going back to your question, a Schedule C or an LLC. So for tax purposes, they are treated just like sole proprietors. So they will do theirs with their personal income tax and it'll be on the Schedule C. And if you go into the IRS website, it's going to give you instructions, but it's also going to give you detail of the different line items. And then you can also cross-check that. If you are an S corporation or C corp, you're going to be filing on 1120 or 1120S. And then from there, all your expenses are going to be reported, and then the difference will be delivered to you as a K1. And then that K1 will be submitted with your tax return.
Okay. So if I go to the website
Mhm.
and I pull down, it will tell me all the eligible expenses for my S Corp or C Corp or whatever. It'll list those out so that I know, okay, if I have a house and I have a home business and my office takes up 300 square feet and my rent is X and I have a total of 4,000 square feet, that's what percentage. So a percentage of what my rent is or my mortgage is that I could write off, those kinds of things.
Right,
Where do I get those kinds of specifics?
right, and this is what a lot of people don't realize is that when you are looking at those forms, the IRS produces instructions for those forms, and the instructions are based on the line items. So, first of all, I would say check in with your accountant because we want you to do what you're good at and run that business and give us more green so we want to grow with you. But if you must, if you must go down the rabbit hole, and the most safe and secure place to get a resource, and we have resources on our website too. But I would always say go to the instruction of the tax form, and the IRS provides not only the instruction on how to fill out the tax form, but on the different numbers, it gives you detailed information about that as well. Now, of course, they're not going to tell you about maximizing, and that's when you need to sit down and speak with a professional on this.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit. When you say maximizing, what does that really mean? Maximizing what and how?
Right. So you want to maximize your deductions. So, like, say for instance, if I'm doing, let's pick a industry, medical transportation, right? I have a lot of vehicles. Maybe the S corporation setup isn't going to be the greatest for me because I'm not able to deduct the mileage. So again, the question goes back to if I started out as an LLC, but maybe I want to save 10,000. So sometimes people would do the election, right? But there are different deductions and different entities that are treated different ways. If I have a partnership, right, and we want to maximize the expenses there. So when I think of maximizing deductions, how I see that is just making sure if I do have a transportation company, that I'm making sure that I'm have everything at a limit. You know, your 401k at a limit, the max that you can deduct here is maximizing those different categories. And it's going to look different based on the different entity. So someone that has a daycare is going to look a lot different for them than someone that has a transportation to someone who's driving a truck. So taxes sometimes, although we report on the same form, is not a one shoes fits all.
Oh, thank you. I think that's important for people to understand, and I think that also indicates the importance of understanding what kind of entity should I get in the first place, and being able to say, well, what's my end goal? What do I want to do? Am I looking to, you know, do generational wealth and leave it, and I'm going to sell it, and those kinds of things, and I want to be able to deduct these kinds of expenses versus those kind of expenses. So I appreciate that because it really helps the audience understand that it's important that we delineate those.
Right. And
So, as we're talking about this, we all know, and I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at when it comes to details. And there's a lot of people that are like, I have anxiety. What advice do you have for those dealing with tax related anxiety all of the time? What should they do?
yeah, so before I jump into that, I did want to say this one thing that I failed to mention when we're talking about maximizing deductions If in fact you're going to be buying property or doing something, maybe maximizing may not be the thing for you because you need to show income. So I wanted to go back and make sure that we had mentioned that to those, like you said, want to, have a different. So it depends on what your end goal is. But getting
Okay.
back, how to make it less stressful. So in order to make it less stressful, what I see a lot is embarrassment, right? Individuals are embarrassed of how they did their records. They're dealing with so many issues and problems. So I just said, just breathe, be in the moment. You're doing the best that you can do. You're doing a lot better than a lot of people are at this current time. You took a brave step to start your own business and go on your own. And now not only are you supporting your household, you're supporting employees and their families. And that's to be celebrated and cheered on. I think just making sure that you have a strategy in place, making sure that you have your receipts organized, categorized, because if you're organized, then you're not going to have that anxiety when you show up. And if you do show up that way, just hey, come as you are. At our practice, we're like come as you are. We're the premier family, and I like individuals like there's nothing you sometimes people think they're the only one going through this. That's the anxiety, like, oh my God, I'm making money, or this wasn't this year, or my partnership is falling apart, but it's okay.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think the other thing is when you're going to look for that CPA or accountant, that's the most personal thing you have. And our ability to connect is so important. We're going to take a station break and we'll be right back because I want to continue with this great conversation. We'll be right back.